It's Tuesday, December 11th. Tonight, a Durham woman has come home to start a business. Next on North Carolina Now.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC TV.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mitchell Lewis. Thanks for joining us. Tonight on North Carolina Now, we'll take a tour of the North Carolina Sports Hall of Fame. We'll meet North Carolina Award recipient Lou Donaldson, and we'll look back at the UNC Social Business Conference held earlier this fall. But we begin in Durham. A former top national model who grew up in Chapel Hill and Hillsborough always stayed grounded in the garden, kitchen, and dining room, rather than in a photo studio or on location. Zachy Murphy is now comfortably at home in North Carolina after a career in New York and California. Bob Garner explains, though, that even during her time away, her roots were never really transplanted out of her native soil.
Zachy Murphy was the UNC homecoming queen. She was a Carolina cheerleader, 1 year ahead of yours truly on that squad in the mid-1960s. Considering her looks, maybe it was inevitable that she became a CoverGirl caliber model, but it wasn't her lifelong dream.
That wasn't in my mind at all. It was my mother's mind and my aunt, who was a friend of the editor of Harper's Bazaar. And that was about after college. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to marry my college boyfriend and settle down and be a teacher.
And what she was really interested in began in the gardens of her childhood homes, first in Chapel Hill and later in Hillsborough.
We grew vegetables, we grew herbs. The first thing I started selling at age 6 was mint to Fowler's Food Store. So I became very interested in herbs at that time. And about that age, I began doing breakfasts for my mother and father, like Sunday brunches. And I would go out and pick little flowers to put on their trays and those kind of things. So it goes way back to my youth.
Even as she was landing top modeling assignments, Zachy was just as focused on introducing her beloved Lexington-style barbecue sandwiches to New York by way of her custom-designed pushcart, which she sometimes manned between photo shoots when the hired help didn't show up. And in her tiny New York apartment, the model with the $1 million features was always inventive with cooking.
She'll kill me for saying this, but she was going to do put clay around a duck and roast it. Well, when she cracked the clay open in this dim little galley of a kitchen, of course the duck wasn't done. And I think we may have just put it back in the oven again, but I think we might have gone out to dinner that night.
Zachy later became a food stylist with Martha Stewart. Having come home to North Carolina several years ago, she's now a Durham-based caterer, personal chef, and teacher, not only of cooking, but hospitality.
It's about gathering people together at the communal table. And one of the things I loved about growing up was that we always had Sunday suppers together. How many families really do that anymore? How many families get together? And I thought the times I remember in my life were the times that we gathered together as a family. We had friends over. We broke bread. We drank wine. It was wonderful. And I go back to that civility. And that is one thing that I am teaching in the classes that I teach. It's not just about cooking. It's bringing people together again.
Zachy's latest passion and enterprise is creating ancient Mediterranean meals of the first century. Sort of a what would Jesus have eaten group experience she puts on at churches and in private homes. Often there's an instructional PowerPoint and a cooking class on the various recipes, but there's always a meal. A recent home presentation of this meal in Chapel Hill began with wine, fava bean hummus and pita bread, and grilled sardines, in this case, smelts.
And smelts were considered the little fish that were in the nets that Jesus caught, the Sea of Galilee. And do you know what St. Peter's fish really is, they think? Do you?
I do.
What is it?
Tilapia.
Thank you. I must have told you.
Actually, I had read that.
Oh, you read that, yes. So tilapia, and I mean, how much more healthy could you get than that? We're going to have a dinner of tilapia over bulgur wheat. And the tilapia has been coated with olive oil, with garlic, with a citrus juice, with something I call ancient Mediterranean seasoning, which I make, by the way. And it will have capers.
The menu can vary. At this meal, there was also salad with bitter herbs, a reminder of the Israelites' bondage in Egypt, although this was sweetened with a pomegranate dressing. Simple grilled vegetables, similar to those that might have been eaten at that time in Galilee and Judea, and fresh and dried fruit, plus simple pastries for dessert. Zaki has done extensive research on dietary laws and kosher practices of the time, but it isn't just the historical information or the emphasis on simple, healthy eating that grabs participants' imaginations.
Zaki she's just extremely passionate about this program, and I work with her and I've seen how she really puts her heart in it, and every single time she cooks this meal for a church or for a group of people, and then when she talks describing the meal, it's worth seeing.
They kind of understand that Jesus was a human being, that all of these people that they read about and have a lot of reverence for were people who had to eat to live. And the things that they ate at sometimes seem very foreign, but these days, with the way food is, they're much more familiar.
Zaki's immersion in the ancient Mediterranean diet of Jesus' time hasn't changed one thing.
I still love my pork barbecue. What I'm teaching here is more kosher, but there was a time in which Jesus did say, it is not about the law of what we ingest. What is important is what is in our heart. That's the most important thing. So maybe Jesus would have liked my Lexington-style barbecue, hickory smoked.
You can learn more about Zaki Murphy's various culinary adventures at zakisculinarycreations.com. And now here's a look at tomorrow's weather. We'll see another cloudy day with rain across much of the state. Temperatures will continue their cool down with highs in the 40s and 50s. And now here's a look at what happened on Wall Street today. The North Carolina Museum of History in downtown Raleigh is home to multiple temporary and permanent exhibits. One gallery showcases the talents of our state's athletic leadership. Jeff Smith takes a look at the North Carolina Sports Hall of Fame.
She won 737 basketball games.
When you pass through the halls of this third-floor gallery at the History Museum, names and faces are quickly recognizable. This is the North Carolina Sports Hall of Fame, which showcases people who have had an impact in our state. But this gallery had very humble beginnings.
It all started in Charlotte back in 1963. A group of people that were part of the Charlotte Sports Commission and also were on the Chamber of Commerce decided that North Carolina needed a Hall of Fame. And 1963 inducted the first class.
The first class of athletes included Jim Beatty, Charlie Choo Choo Justice, Ace Parker, Wes Farrell, and Estelle Lawson Page. Each were standouts in their sport, just like each of the 290-plus inductees into the Hall have been. And that is the key to this museum. It's not a single sport or activity focus. There are all sports represented, and even those people who supported the sports as well.
Well, the difference is that we represent all sports at all levels. We have high school covered, we have college covered, we have baseball, basketball, football, soccer, Olympic sports. We represent the entire state in every category. And that is really what separates us. The NASCAR folks do a wonderful job in Charlotte, but they're about NASCAR. Local communities, cities now have their own Hall of Fame for their particular area, but we represent the state.
There's golf gear from Arnold Palmer and Raymond Floyd, basketballs from Kay Al and Mike Krzyzewski, even a NASCAR of Richard Petty's, footballs, baseballs, hockey, and more. Each item was used by or a meaningful part to what made their career so outstanding.
Each member that comes in provides something that's significant representing their career. And we have 291. The problem is we can only put up about 200, and we've run out of space. We do feature every year the current inductees in a separate exhibit that we think is pretty neat, but we really need more space.
The need for more space goes beyond the need to display the current and future Hall of Famers memorabilia. The Hall also wants to add more features to be an interactive and more meaningful representation of the total athlete.
Well, we think sports offers an awful lot to families and the youngsters. Our goal is to create a desire on the part of the youngsters in North Carolina to become achievers, like our Hall of Fame members are achievers. We wish to exhibit things beyond just the artifacts. We'd love to have an exhibit on nutrition and physical fitness and character building, on life lessons that sports teaches. So we try to incorporate the history part and the learning part. And our long-term goal is to reach every kid out in the state of North Carolina, either here at the museum or go to their place.
And for the museum to be able to go to Greensboro, Wilmington, Spruce Pine, or Elizabeth City, they need to add a mobile accessory to their capabilities.
We decided several years ago that we needed to reach out to the citizens of our state, especially the youngsters. And so we've designed a mobile unit. It's really a traveling museum. It's an experience in sports. And it goes beyond that. Part of what we'll have in that museum will be exhibits on nutrition, physical fitness, character building, along with the history element. And then we'll exhibit by category of sports, interesting artifact and stories, and there'll be interactive items that kids can participate and play and learn. The neat thing is we can take this museum in part throughout the state.
To learn more about the North Carolina Sports Hall of Fame, please go to our website where we have a link to the North Carolina Museum of History's page. North Carolina Now has joined with the Department of Cultural Resources to present profiles of the 2012 winners of the North Carolina Award, the highest civilian award the state can bestow. Tonight, we introduce you to jazz musician Lou Donaldson.
My name is Lou Donaldson, Sweet Papa Lou. I'm a jazz musician. My mother was a music teacher. Everybody in my family plays music. I was drafted to the United States Navy and I got in the Navy band, playing nothing but the clarinet then. And then I heard Charlie Parker and the clarinet was gone. I threw it in the water. No, I didn't really. I came back to A&T College, so I rented this room and he had this picture up on the wall. Before I finally said, "Who is that?" He said, "That's my niece." I said, "Get me an introduction." I finally convinced her to come to see me play baseball. At the end of the ball game, the bases were loaded, and the guy hits a shot that everybody thought was gonna be a hit. I wiped it up, and the crowd went crazy. And she came all down and gave me a hug, you know, everybody. So I knew I was okay then. So that's how I met her. Dizzy Gillespie's band came through Greensboro, and he told me I should be in New York. I made a record with Milt Jackson Combo, later the Modern Jazz Quartet, and that started me in 1950. I played Thelonious Monk, Horace Silver, Jimmy Lunceford, Hot Lips Page, a lot of people. That was my thing, bebop. It's not good for the 9-to-5 worker who comes with his girlfriend to hear some music. You had to kind of please the people that you work for, because I was playing in nothing but ghetto clubs. See, you got to realize, back then you had segregation. I started developing my own style, which they call soul jazz. Lou Donaldson's sound is like a straight ahead music. I call it no fusion, no confusion. Favorite album I made was an album called Blues Walk, made in 1958. But the biggest record I made for money was Alligator Boogaloo, which was made in 1968, 69. Lots of Life was an album with all ballads, sweet music. It's beautiful. I'm a college graduate, so I demanded a contract and royalties. A lot of others who had drugs, they didn't care. The man just put $2, $3 in their hand. They gone, you know. I got 4 clubs I play in New York when I don't want to travel. I'd leave here, I'd go probably to Rochester, New York. Then I'd go either to Cleveland or Pittsburgh, Columbus, Ohio, Louisville, Kentucky, St. Louis, Kansas City. And I'd go to the West Coast, Los Angeles. We'd go up to San Francisco, we'd go to Seattle, and we'd come back. Played everywhere. The best place I ever played was probably Japan. They love jazz. But I go to Europe and I play everywhere. Germany, Austria, Sao Paulo, Brazil. They're crazy about my music. It's like nostalgia because I'm the only one that plays it, you know. I'm 85, so 85 is still alive, so, you know. If they want to hear what I'm playing, they got to hear me. Nobody else can do it. That's a good position to be in.
The 2006 Nobel Peace Prize winner Muhammad Yunus was the keynote speaker at the UNC's Social Business Conference earlier this fall. Dr. Yunus, an economics professor, talked about using your own skills and ideas to make a difference in the community at large.
Making money is such a pleasure, it's such a happiness. We all get mesmerized by making money. It's a personal happiness brings to you making money. I said what we miss out, what we don't even discuss in our everyday dialogues or even discussion in the classrooms. How much happiness it is to make other people happy. Making money is, if it is a happiness, making other people happy is a super happiness. But we were never introduced to that because it's such a self-centered economy and life that we have built around us. So I thought I should be failing in my duty if I don't introduce this other part of super happiness. That's why I thought I'll invite myself into this conference to tell you that story. And as President Ross mentioned about how this microcredit idea came, how it was introduced in a tiny little village next to the university campus where I was teaching. Because we were in a terrible situation at the time that this initiative came. We were going through a famine in Bangladesh, people dying of hunger. That's a very unexpected kind of circumstances for a young guy who just came back from the States with his brand new PhD marked on his shoulder to teach economics in a university, brand new university in Bangladesh. So that's what happened. And if soon the young man realized that all the things he has learned in all the universities that he has gone through are useless. It doesn't help people. All the textbooks economics has no application in the circumstances that he is in. So he found himself totally useless in the face of the situation. So out of this sense of utter uselessness, he was trying to find some little crack in the whole thing to see if he can find himself worth spending another day. So that was the beginning of the whole thing. The decision at that moment that I took, if I can make myself useful to at least one person, even for one day, I'll be lucky. So I was looking for an opportunity to see if I'm useful to another person. Otherwise, why leave the day if you have no use for yourself to another person? I had no idea what I should do. I was just looking for things that I could make myself in some way relevant to that person. So I took a few of my students with me every day to go around, try to identify what can be done for the day. And that led me to a series of things which don't cut into discussions, but get focused on something of loan sharking in the village. The question came to my mind, if loan sharks give this tiny little money to poor people in the village, to grab the entire earning capacity of that person by giving this tiny little money. And it happens every day right in front of your eyes. And you feel helpless, you don't know what to do with it. Suddenly it came to my mind, I can solve this problem. This is so easy. It may be so complicated globally because it's going on for centuries, the loan sharking everywhere, in every single human community that goes on. Rich country, poor country, doesn't matter. It's such an intricate problem. But for this village, for this few people, I can solve that. The idea was very simple. I said, why don't I lend the money to these poor people instead of they going to the loan sharks? They don't have to go to loan sharks, don't have to suffer through all those agonies of being the victims of loan sharks. Money involved was so small, that's what encouraged me. When I make a list of people who borrowed from the loan sharks, My list has 42 names. Total money they borrowed was $27. I can lend this money, $27. That's no big deal. And that's what I did. I didn't worry about if there is an example in history or something. Then crossed my mind. This is something I can do, let me do it. I did it. But I didn't expect the sensation that created in the village. I thought this is just one of those many little things that I was doing. This is one more little thing that I did, $27 worth of little thing. But the sensation was much bigger than that. Everybody looked at me as if I have done some miracle. Nobody could believe that anybody in good sense would do such a thing. Then the question that came to my mind, if you can make so many people so happy with such a small amount of money, why shouldn't you do more of it?
And that's our show for tonight. Thanks for watching. Have a great evening, everyone.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC TV.